Hello, and welcome back to our hate crime awareness campaign. Today we're meeting with Terry McCorry, our disability hate crime advocate within Leonard Cheshire. Terry's going to discuss some of the issues within disability hate crime today, how it's manifested itself over the pandemic, and what we plan to do within the hate crime advocacy scheme to continue to address this moving forward. Here's what he had to say. Hi, Terry. Thanks for being with us today. If you just want to start out telling us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work in hate crime advocacy.
Yeah, hello, Michael. It's nice to see you, and it's good to catch up. My name's Terry McCorry. I'm a disability hate crime advocate working with Leonard Cheshire. So, quite simply, I saw the job online. I felt it was something that I could contribute to, and I could support the people who experience disability hate crime. So it was kind of almost the advert jumped out at me, and I went, "Oh, I really have to apply for that job." Um, Came to Leonard Cheshire almost 3.5 years ago, and I've been doing the role since then.
Excellent, excellent, Terry. And do you want to tell us a little bit about Leonard Cheshire generally, some of the services and projects you provide, and as well as its role within the hate crime advocacy scheme?
Yeah. The organisation Leonard Cheshire is named after a gentleman called Leonard Cheshire who founded the charity back in the 1940s. We operate throughout the world in various countries, and we operate in all the nations of the United Kingdom. In Northern Ireland, in particular, we have quite a number of projects. So we have supported living. So the supported living works around the aims of our charity, which is to support disabled people to live, learn, and work as independently as they choose. And so we have supported living where disabled people live independently, but with support as and when they need it. And we have those services in Belfast, Lurgan, Derry stroke Londonderry. We have a new project in Northern Ireland, which is working on treatment for people who have alcohol-acquired brain injury. And that's simply alcohol has been consumed to an extent it's affected their brain function. We've realized that people are misdiagnosed with dementia and are quite often put in inappropriate care. So we've set up our new unit, and would you believe the people who partake in the treatment, 75% of them have some improvement, 25% of them have total recovery. So really exciting project. We have other projects about getting young people involved in community work, and of course, we're here to talk about disability hate crime advocacy, and we run the disability element of the advocacy scheme.
Fantastic. And do you want to talk a little bit more about your specific role within the scheme and maybe some of the considerations and barriers to addressing disability hate crime?
Yeah, absolutely. Disability hate crime simply is where a disabled person is targeted for who they are. And I've found over time that typically the cases I work on happen in and around the individual's home. So their place of safety is disrupted because people are targeting them at their home. It'll often start out with antisocial behavior. Things aren't really a crime, but actually by working in partnership with the police the way we do and working with the other agencies that we're involved with, we're able to get measures in place to try and stop the antisocial behavior before the behavior escalates into a crime. So it can be simply youths hanging around outside the house. They think, oh, that person in there, they're disabled, they can't come out and chase us off. It can be potentially a couple of plant pots moved into the area of the front door of maybe someone who uses a wheelchair. And so when they come out to leave their house, what do? They have to start moving plant pots. And for some people, that's not possible. One case, bins were put across the end of the lady's driveway. So when she went out in her wheelchair to get into her car to drive off, she had to move bins. When she came home, the bins had been returned back across her driveway. So those sorts of little things, people live in dread of. They're living in fear. They're thinking, what next? When's it going to happen next? And in a lot of cases, things escalate to assaults, criminal damage, maybe a window broken, and in some cases, much, much more serious crime. In the past 2 years, I have 4 individuals who've had to leave their home because of the danger they were placed in. And that's really serious, to lose your home. And, you know, adapted properties for people with disabilities to live in aren't to a penny. You know, they're all occupied, there are huge demand for them, and they quite simply end up with nowhere to live.
Excellent, Terry. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the specific services you provide to victims and kind of how you help them through maybe the investigation process in the wake of a hate crime?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd mentioned before about barriers to reporting. So for some people, the things that have been going on with them for so long, it's part of their normal daily life. They think, well, this is what happens when you're disabled. So they may think it wouldn't be important enough to trouble the police with, for example. It could be that they have rang the police in the past and for whatever reason weren't satisfied with the response and feel there's no point in reporting to police. It could be that because of their disability, they can't actually report to police. So there's lots of avenues there which would prevent people from reporting. When I'm able to become involved, we are able to then act as the intermediary between police and the individual. So for example, I can make the report on their behalf to police. I have basically in place means to communicate with people by whatever means. So for example, I have some people I've worked with who have like very high social anxiety. For people with social anxiety, to meet me would cause them a lot of hardship and potentially to feel very unwell. So I'll communicate with them in whatever means. So for example, I use WhatsApp, Teams, Zoom, which we're all familiar with now, text messaging, literally whatever way the person wants to communicate with me. If it's email, if it's letter, I really don't mind. We will work in the way possible. So I'm able to take a report in a means that suits the individual, and I'm able to bring that to police. I have found that often when police speak with an individual directly, they will talk about the case, assuming a certain level of knowledge around policing or around the justice system. And actually, the person they're speaking to is left thinking, what's this all about? I don't know what's happening. So if the police are able to give the information to me, I'm able to bring it to the person and we can have a conversation around it. The great thing about having me involved is we can talk about the unknowns. So we can say, well, by reporting this to police, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. We'll look at various options. How would you feel if police called to your front door? Would that make you feel secure? Would it make you feel unsafe? So then we know, well, we're going to ask the police not to call to your house and we'll make arrangements for you to speak to them at another location. So we're able to go through almost like the pitfalls of different courses of action. You know, we also are in a position whereby we can assist with communication with housing. So if housing are able to have an input in and around some of their community safety, maybe help the person with putting a fence up to stop people coming onto the property. There's various options and we can help be the point of contact for housing. We can be the person who has to chase up the investigating officer, chase up the housing officer. Have you got something happening with that yet? Because doing that on a daily basis and dealing with the issues that are happening around you can actually be too much for an individual. So we're able to do that chasing up, feedback in. Of course, as an advocate, we don't do anything that the person doesn't want us to do. So if, for example, we discuss options, and even if I totally disagree with the person's choice, I will carry out what they've asked me to do. So if you like, I become their voice. I do what they want me to do in terms of communicating with other people. And then I'm able to bring the results back. And we have some superb successful results. So for example, one of the big frustrations that a lot of people have is when they report to police, a different officer turns up every time. So every time the officer comes out, a police officer comes out, they will maybe give a different opinion on what's happening. And in some cases, they've given differing advice. Yes, you should record it on your phone. No, you shouldn't because you're breaking the law. You're in danger of being assaulted. They've got lots of different advice going on. By working with me and me using the contacts I have within every policing district in Northern Ireland, I can actually set up a relationship between one neighbourhood officer in the area, and providing there's no life-threatening issues going on at the time of the report, the individual can either make the report directly or through me, but the one officer will be appointed to deal with it. Therefore, we get a really solid, consistent response. We get solid, consistent advice being given across. And actually, in every case bar one, that has proved really, really successful. Because we're really developing good working, trusting relationships with police. And sometimes with the history of Northern Ireland, that's really hard to do. Of course, a lot of people think, well, when you ring the police, if I ring the police, they're going to go and arrest people. I'm going to have to go to court. And it almost sets a ball. They think it sets a ball in motion that they can't do anything about. That's not actually true, because the person can report to police. There doesn't have to be a judicial process. There doesn't have to be arrests. The police can put in measures, maybe increased patrolling, stopping yous in the area, letting all the yous know behaviour, drinking in the street outside houses isn't acceptable. Take a much more general response, maybe look at using ASBO legislation without actually the individual having to become involved in that. And therefore they get the outcome, what they want, which is, I want to live in my house in peace. I want to get on with my life without actually going down a judicial route. So we're able to we're able to have these conversations with the people we work with, but also with the police. So to me, the scheme works really, really well across all the avenues of hate crime where we have advocates working. We're also then able to work in partnership. So for example, if there was a disabled gay person, myself and the advocate from Rainbow can work together, the same with Migrant Centre. So we all have our specialism that we bring to the table, and that specialism gives real confidence to the people we work with. Me having my own disability, I think, also reflects and resonates with people whenever I would maybe go out to meet them and they go, this person knows, they've experience of what I'm going through. And I find that's really beneficial as well.
Excellent, Terry. I think you covered everything there, and it is so much about adapting effective strategies on the ground and working in effective partnership both with the police and with partners across the statutory and community sectors. So fantastic. And I think that leads straight into my last question here, Terry. What do you think has been the overall impact of the hate crime advocacy scheme, and where do you see it sort of going from here?
The overall impact, I believe, gives individuals the confidence to report to police by establishing those relationships. So if, for example, they are having repeat offences, they have the confidence to engage, knowing that something will happen that is within what they're comfortable with. The things aren't going to run off and things happen, say, oh, I have to go to court. Most people, the thought of going to court is frightening for lots of people. I think it's probably frightening for some police officers as well. It's a daunting experience. So really important we establish those relationships. We build the confidence of the individual in order to deal with hate crime. Not only that, that has a knock-on effect then, because these people often live within communities, they have friends with disabilities, they talk about what's happening. They're able to say to their friend, what's happening to you is really wrong. Do you know that guy in Leonard Cheshire, Terry? He can maybe help you out. So it gives that confidence building in the community. When people hear and see that a member of their community has been attacked because of who they are, it actually has this ripple effect. It's not just the one person's impacted. So when they know things happen in relation to the way the individual wants it to happen, it again ripples out, the word gets out. I think facilitating communication is really important. And again, word gets out. We also do quite a bit of awareness raising. So I like to go out and speak with groups of disabled people and people who work with disabled people. Let them know about disability hate crime, let them know that we're here to give the support and have that little bit of resilience built in should something happen. Of course, we would love to change the narrative around the response that typically happens with police when they turn up, because evidence is needed sometimes to progress prosecutions if that's the route to go down. So we'd love to have a scheme in place that can provide support around maybe a CCTV camera to capture that evidence in order to bring that to fruition. It's a wish list, it's there. I think it would be extremely beneficial to the people we work with. We also are in a position that we can also signpost or refer people on. So as a knock-on effect of potentially having the hate crime happening, they may need counselling, and yet victim support have their emotional counselling. But maybe there's something else that's rattling around in the background that we, in conversation, we come to. And I've established really good connections in local councils, local police community safety partnerships, counselling agencies, and we're able to then establish a referral with the person's knowledge and consent. We don't do anything without them asking us to do it. I would love to see the scheme expanded to the point whereby we're actually out more, doing more awareness raising, building the resilience, because the sad thing about the scheme is we start to work with people after the harm has happened. I would love to be in a position whereby we equip the people we work with before they become a victim of crime. And that means when they become a victim of crime, they're not lost, lonely, and isolated. They're actually able to go, I remember I spoke to someone from Leonard Cheshire. I'm going to give them a ring. I know the help's out there, because by that sense, that gives confidence. It means people aren't as isolated and maybe as fearful of crime, because of course, fear of crime is often much worse than actually being a victim of crime.
Absolutely, Terry. And again, I think you've hit everything on the head there. I have no doubt that victims of disability hate crime will continue to get the much needed services and support they need through yourself and through Leonard Cheshire, as well as victims of hate crime across the spectrum. So looking forward to continue to work with you and seeing where it goes from here.